Rebel Force Radio presents...
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession.
This is the RFR Mandalorian After Show.
All right, chut, everybody. Welcome back. Rebel Force Radio Mandalorian After Show. So great to be back with you. And great to have, a laid-back episode of The Mandalorian to talk about with not much going on, not a whole lot happening. I hope all of you who are such huge fans of Mandalorian culture and all the various Mandalorians throughout the Star Wars saga are happy now, okay? You finally have you gotten everything that you want yet? I hope so. But it is making for some amazing Star Wars, and we are so glad to be with you and to be hanging out and discussing this incredible series. And we've got a heck of a panel lined up to break it all down with you tonight, including and starting with my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. I'm not letting him go. I have Baby Yoda. And I am not letting him go. You will not take him from me. I don't care if you're a death trooper or who you are. He's staying here with me.
He's scarred.
Oh, my God.
He's scarred.
I'll tell you this. The second I saw the title, The Tragedy, I had a bad feeling about it. And sure enough, our little guy is in the grasps of evilness. And so we're going to talk about it this week with the Mandalorian After Show.
All right. Also joining us this week is a guy you've read many times, I'm sure, as Star Wars fans. He's written countless books about Star Wars and has an encyclopedic knowledge, and it's a good thing because the type of Star Wars writing he does requires that kind of skill. We're talking about our good pal, Mr. Adam Bray. Adam, welcome to your first Mandalorian After Show with Rebel Force Radio.
Hey, it's previously Fat Adam.
Not anymore. Hey, by the way, maybe you could give your diet tips to Boba Fett, because he was poking out of that armor a little bit, I noticed. All right, he could probably benefit from that.
Fat.
Yeah, he was a little bit. But good to have you, Adam, of course. And also joining us, he was such a hit last week, and a hoot and a hit last week. We had to bring him back because he offers just an incredible commentary, layer of commentary on all of these episodes. I'm talking about our pal from across the pond, Mr. Paul Bateman, joining us again. Paul.
Hello, everybody. It's good to be back. At last, I can cosplay.
Wait a minute. You're saying you now fit the armor?
Yeah, no problem. I can now do, belly fat.
It's great. All of us middle-aged dudes can now be all, these characters.
Yeah, daddy fat.
Oh, it is. It's
our day has arrived.
Yeah, no, I don't look. I have no idea how old Tim Morrison is, so I'm not going to. I should only hope to look so good.
I wouldn't call him fat to his face, would you?
Oh no! I definitely am not using the F word. I just said he was. He was sticking out of that. Yeah, but you know what? It had been a long time since he'd been in that armor. I can understand.
It's layers, man. It's just layers. We all wear a few jumpers now and again, don't we?
And we got this.
Fat.
Yeah, and you know what? And good thing he had the skirt on, because that's always very forgiving. If you can't, if you're busting through the pants, you can put the skirt on. There were probably a lot of people excited. Boba's wearing a skirt. It's like they're so excited about this. But we are talking about Chapter 14. As Jim said, title is The Tragedy. I'll give you the tale of the tape here, directed by Robert Rodriguez. Yes, that Robert Rodriguez. And written by Jon Favreau. Original air date, December 4th, 2020. The episode clocked in at just a little over a half hour. This felt, guys, like a very, very quick episode. I had to go back and look and see the running time, because man, did it fly by. There was so much that was packed into this. but I did feel a little bit shortchanged. I'm not used to, being so precious about the amount of time, but this one, I could have used that extra 10 minutes on this episode. But I think they, Jim, you alluded to the cliffhanger. I think they left us right where they wanted us here.
Oh, yeah, no question about it. I mean, sure, it was half an hour, but just about every inch of that half hour was chock full of action-packed sequences, fight sequences on the ground, in the air. Baby Yoda sitting on the seeing stone. Baby Yoda goes to Stonehenge, right, Paul?
Yeah. Well, I've been to Stonehenge. I've actually slept on the stone as well, so it never happened to me. I was waiting for the blue lights and everything. Nothing.
You know, you were never surrounded by the big blue force field?
No, I think as close as I got to that was a lot of blue police lights saying you really shouldn't be sleeping on Stonehenge. Get out of it.
This thing is a monument. What are you doing? What are you doing? It stood here for 1,000,000 years until Bateman showed up.
Yeah. Well, we're right near a bunch of Neolithic stone circles right near us. We've got 10,000-year-old stone circles just like less than a mile away. It's quite crazy.
Oh my God. Well,
Hey, Paul, I've never been to Stonehenge. I mean, but I'm correct in picking up those vibes from the Seeing Stone area on Typhon, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, it's got that kind of vibe, isn't it? It looks kind of mystical and like maybe Spinal Tap will turn up any minute. You know?
Well, that's my knowledge of Stonehenge basically does come from Spinal Tap. I'm embarrassed to admit it, but I'm probably in good company too.
Well, there were a lot of big topics that were covered in this episode, and I'm glad we have Adam on for a lot of reasons. But Adam, I want to bring this up to you because we finally have the recanonization, of Boba Fett having survived the Sarlacc. Now, this goes back to Legends, and in the Legends canon, that was established as fact. But I don't believe in the current canon that it was ever established until this point. Am I correct in that?
Right, yeah. And in this new age, I think they kind of intentionally left it as a play zone for all the writers because of intentionally having an intention to make a show or a movie, just like Tatooine. Whenever I've written about Tatooine in my books, that was kind of, you weren't allowed to make anything up new about Tatooine as a planet because I think they knew they wanted to do an Obi-Wan Kenobi thing. So yeah, they have these zones where you're not allowed to play if they think they're going to do something with it soon.
And Boba was in the no play zone, and
right.
So now, and help me out with one other thing, and that is the establishment of Jango Fett. Is he or isn't he a Mandalorian? Now, that was controversial for a lot of fans because Dave Filoni on this very show, not on Rebel Force Radio, said as much as that Jango Fett is not a Mandalorian. However, the way that the Mandalorian mythology has evolved, you have this concept of the foundlings. Now, my perception was that this foundling idea originated around the time of the Clone Wars, but if Jango Fett was a foundling, then this whole notion would have had to have happened decades before. Am I right?
Yeah, and I kind of felt like as soon as we learned about Din's backstory and how he is a Mandalorian, what makes him a Mandalorian, how that came to be, I felt like, well, this has been done specifically to reclaim Boba Fett as a Mandalorian, like almost like this whole thing is a setup to bring Boba Fett, back into the fold and to make a show out of him.
That's exactly right. So they had to start with Jango, the father. I mean, really what they were doing at this point, Jim, is they had to give Boba actual birthright to that armor in order for him and the Mandalorian, Din Djarin, to coexist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And it just establishes so much about Boba Fett now. Of course, Dave Filoni did famously say on this show that when referring to the Prime Minister Almec, who claimed to Obi-Wan Kenobi in an episode of Star Wars: The Clone Wars that Jango Fett was not a Mandalorian. They don't know how he got the armor. And he was not one of theirs. So that caused a lot of controversy. And people assumed Almec was lying to Obi-Wan Kenobi. Not really understanding what the motivation would have been for the lie. We asked Dave Filoni, and Dave said, no, when we wrote it, George Lucas, Dave Filoni, they had determined that Almec was telling the truth. But as we know in Star Wars, everything has a certain point of view, doesn't it? And so now with this evolution of the character, this evolution of the Mandalorians, and the Mandalorians having all of these different elements to their society, some vastly different than others, much like here on the planet Earth, many of us living on this planet do things very differently than others, but we're all still humans, and we're all still Earthlings, and so
speak for yourself.
Get that with Mandalorians, well, and you get that from Mandalorians as well. It's a complex society, and so we're starting to learn more about that complex society. And with those reveals also comes revelations about the history of characters that have been around in Star Wars for a long time, like Jango Fett. Still learning more about the origins of Boba Fett all of these years later. 40 years since the character was introduced. He's still being very much fleshed out in front of our eyes. And it's kind of cool.
Paul, this idea of essentially recruiting new members of the Mandalorian way. You can't really say race or species because this idea of foundlings, it could be, my gosh, you could have you could have a Rhodian Mandalorian wearing the helmet. They might have to do some alterations to that helmet, but still you could in theory have that. It seems as though this was a movement that was being pushed by the Death Watch, and you almost get a vibe as though they were looking to, in some way, build up the numbers so that they could eventually overtake the, I guess you might want to call them the purebloods, or the actual, those that are from Mandalore. You think that is something that we might, see expanded on in terms of how these two, sects or areas of Mandalore, work with each other, or how they?
I thought you were going further with it then.
No. It's very complicated. It is. Yeah, it's very complicated, and you sometimes you're afraid to say the wrong thing because we have instant communication here. People will be like, "Oh, please, Jason, how dare you not know this?" But it is a complicated thing, and I get the sense that it's still evolving. So if anybody out there thinks they know it all, you don't know it all, because even the guys writing the show don't know it all yet. At least that's my theory.
Definitely. I kind of feel as though this is just a survival thing, that it's something that maybe at one time was just instigated because the numbers were so low. Right. That, that it was just a practical choice to sort of say, well, we're going to get at least outnumbered because we're a minority, so we've got no choice but to fold other people into it. But at the same time, too, I can see where they might be coming from in terms of if they suddenly have gone out of favour, their attitude's gone out of favour, then the race that they belong to suddenly becomes a lot less relevant, because it's like they're not the same. And if it's about attitude and it's about ritual and things that they've done for generations, then it suddenly starts to become about people that do that rather than all that. So it's right. Interesting, and I like that whole idea of them sort of just kind of being survivors. And I know that there was a new game that nearly happened with that was called Ragtag, and it was basically about the survivors Alderaan. And I always thought that was a really interesting idea for a story, because you kind of think, you assume that everybody on Alderaan was blown up, but then obviously there were lots of people off world, so there's thousands of Alderaanians throughout the universe that, you know, maybe aren't too happy with the Empire, and I'm sure they would have had to do something similar to make their numbers grow and build up their power. So it makes perfect sense to me. What I like about all the Mando stuff that they're bringing into this now is, I just feel that they're taking us back to a lot of things which we just kind of assumed, or that were hinted at by the odd remark or the odd book, you know, occasionally, to do with you know, whether or not they're Mandalorian and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like they're bringing it all back to where we want it to be. Like, everybody was kind of excited about the idea that Boba was a Mandalorian. So the fact that he suddenly wasn't was a bit kind of disconcerting, and it's nice to know that he's kind of a Mandalorian. And I'm sure the Mando.
Hey, Paul, I'm sorry, you're breaking up on us a little bit. So hopefully it'll come back.
I'm getting feedback at your end. I can hear Rico, but I haven't got a speaker or anything.
Well, nothing has changed on this
real
end.
Choppy.
Yeah,
it's real choppy.
Adam, how important is it, do you think, that that we actually establish, you know, some sort of you know, official Mandalorian blood tie or something to the Fetts? And at what point, and I want to give credit, there was someone on the chat said, who's the Mandalorian now? Is it Jango Fett or is it Din Djarin? Because they're all running around in Jango's ship now and they're wearing Mandalorian armor. So who's the real Mandalorian?
Yeah, that's something I was thinking about today, because you know, there's a whole question of, well, who's the main character of the show now? Is it Din Djarin the Mandalorian, or is it really Baby Yoda? And the show's called The Mandalorian, and we're set up so we're working towards a destination to give the baby away, whether we do or not. But the only way I could see Din giving up the baby would be is if he dies, because he's emotionally attached to the baby. I think if he's given the opportunity, it's, you know, we've already seen a couple of times it's a struggle for him. The only way I could see that is if he dies, and I could see that happening. You know, that's sort of the thing you'd see in a Western. But that would be a great point for Boba Fett then to become the Mandalorian and become the main character of the show. And you asked how important it is for the blood ties. I think it matters a lot to fans that he's a legitimate Mandalorian. That's why this question has gone on and been so important since we heard that in the Clone Wars. So yeah, I think it matters. But also it mattered to see him in this episode cast a new light on Boba Fett. Up till now, he's always been a villain. Even in the Clone Wars as a kid, little Boba Fett was a real jerk. There was nothing really great about him. He was a bad kid. You know, it wasn't all his fault. He'd been set up for it, but he wasn't a hero. But this episode, for the very first time, establishes Boba Fett as a heroic and a very honorable character. So I think this did something really important, where he can now be a protagonist of his own series, whether it's a different series or whether it's this series.
Well, and Jim, is that too much too soon? I mean, was it too much to ask to turn Boba Fett after nearly 40 years of him being a villain? And as Adam, he brings up, you know, the Clone Wars series, and we got to see young Boba. But he had to do a lot of things in this episode in 30 minutes. He had to establish Boba Fett as a hero, or even an anti-hero, and you had to show how the guy can kick some serious, you know what. which he was doing pretty handily with that gaffy stick. Because up to that point, let's face it, we have not seen Boba Fett in action do anything that impressive in Star Wars, maybe outside of comic books and things like that. There was a lot of Boba Fett character development to do in 30 minutes. Was it too much for you?
No, not at all. Gosh, no, not at all. Too much what? What is actually the question? I don't even understand the question. Too much.
I think they were trying to do a lot with this character in 30 minutes, and it seemed, for me, it felt a little bit rushed. I would have liked to have seen him develop into this anti-hero maybe over the course of a couple of episodes. I'd have liked to have seen him, at least be perceived as a villain a little bit longer. I thought it was a little bit too much too soon.
I would agree with you if in this episode he became a New Republic marshal like Cara Dune. But I don't see this as too much too fast. I mean, he's still running with the bad guys. Fennec Shand is a bad guy. The Mandalorian, he's an anti-hero himself. So I don't see him. He hasn't crossed the line or anything. He did say that he has loyalties to no one. He doesn't pledge allegiance to anything. He stands for himself. And I believe that's very consistent with Boba Fett and Jango Fett, for that matter. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And Boba Fett, we don't really even know how much time has passed since he escaped the Sarlacc. He could have been in there for a considerable amount of time. The Sarlacc keeps its food, it takes its food in live and keeps it alive, digests it over the course of 1,000 years. Looks like Boba was digesting something over the course of a few years himself. Yeah, but no. I mean, I don't see any drastic change in the character. And as a matter of fact, he's helping out a fellow Mandalorian too. Keep that in mind. I mean, he's already shown at least some sort of connection to the Mandalorians to begin with. So there's a natural compulsion for him to work together with the Mando, and Boba is a man of his word as well. He said that if the Mandalorian gave him back his armor, he would be in debt to him. And he did reacquire the armor, and he is going to follow through with his pledge.
Well, he reacquired the armor because he stole it when Mandalorian wasn't looking. So it's not it's not like it was with Cobb Vanth, where there was an agreement and there was look, you filled your debt, you're going to get this. He
just helped himself. Right. But I mean, what's the deal with Star Wars? Why do they leave their boarding ramps open all the time? I lock my car when I park it in good neighborhoods, for crying out loud. These guys land on planets they've never been to before, and they leave the door wide open. I'd have everything on. I'd have that club on the steering wheel, holding it in place. I just the lack of logic and security that goes on with these maniacs is incredible. But yeah, so Boba Fett was able to get his armor back. And may I pause for a moment of silence for the biggest tragedy in this episode of all.
That's the tragedy.
The complete obliteration of the Razor Crest. After all of us had spent $400 to Hasbro to send us one next year.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
30,000 ships
all over the world
too.
And now it's gone.
They were like, we better get this sucker out quick.
I see Big Steve Glosson. He's in the chat going, how do people who got the HasLab Razor Crest feel about it now? Well, hey, listen, I was thinking about it because I did notice, I thought that myself. There's no way they're bringing it back. It's impossible. I mean, maybe they could get another Razor Crest. I don't know. But
hey, the Enterprise blew up and they got another one of those, so anything's possible.
Yeah, but those were always bigger and better and faster. I mean, part of the charm of the Razor Crest was it was a piece of junk. It was an antique. It was a relic. And it was valuable to the Mandalorian because it was off the grid for both the Empire and the New Republic because it was pre-Empire. And that had made it valuable. It certainly came up in Season 6 from last season. the prisoner, where they needed that ship to be able to sneak through the security grid to get on board the prison ship. And so it was very valuable and irreplaceable. I mean, think of he had all of those weapons in there. He had the carbon freezing chamber in there, and a toilet. He had everything he needed. Well, almost everything. But it's just, it hurts me. But I thought about this for a second. I bet, and I didn't do the math because I only thought about it today, but I might actually do the math. I don't know how many minutes we actually saw the Millennium Falcon in the 6 films that it had been featured in, but I bet all of those appearances of the Falcon in the Star Wars films, the minutes add up to less than the amount of time we spent with the Razor Crest over a season and a half. That's just my guess. So if we can be so emotionally connected to the Millennium Falcon, even though we've spent more time with the Razor Crest, I mean, now we're like, because people are already saying, oh my God, only a season and a half and now it's gone forever. But I still maintain we've probably spent more time with the Falcon. And the last HasLab thing was the Jabba sail barge, which was $500, and that thing blew up in the one and only movie it was in. So I think we can handle having an expensive action figure ship in our collections and not feel weird about it at all.
I think you just made a lot of people feel better with that.
I'm trying. I'm trying to be the silver lining to the dark cloud guy.
Yeah. Well, all right, Paul. There's some people. The chat. And thank you, by the way, everybody that's tuning in and watching and listening live. But the chat does seem a little bit split here. Some are kind of on agreeing with me that perhaps this was a little bit too much. They tried to do too much with the character of Boba Fett in one episode, and the other half are saying that it was just enough and you can never have too much Boba. What say you in terms of developing this character?
Are you crazy? Rushed? It's been 40 years.
Yes.
Right. I want to see badass Boba Fett turn up with a giant club and wail the heck out of a bunch of stormtroopers, like he's in some other Robert Rodriguez movie. It was just amazing. I mean, he was so kick-ass, and I've never been like a massive fan of the idea of him playing Boba, but seeing him in this finally in the armor, and I mean, isn't this the first time I've actually seen him play Boba? Right? I mean, he's never done it before, has he? I mean, he's never age and
outside of doing the voiceovers. The special edition voiceovers is as close as he's got to the character.
Did you notice the way he was talking to voiceovers? Did you notice how he was? Although obviously, they were kind of trying to get the two voices similar, Boba and Jango, in the prequel era. I felt like he was trying to kind of lean into the kind of younger voice a little bit too. So he copied some of the other guy's vocal kind of qualities. It didn't feel like a straight up Tamura. It felt like a kind of a hybrid. I really like the way he sounded, which is unusual for me because normally I'm like, oh, this shouldn't have dubbed over the old voice. I like the old voice. But I thought he sounded great in this. So I found it really, really easy to kind of accept him as Boba, even though obviously he's a lot older. But I mean, it looks pretty rough. I am wondering how long he was in there. My assumption has always been that maybe he could call Slave One, the way that in the old westerns that have some guy would whistle for his horse. So I always thought that maybe Slave One would just turn up and shoot the Sarlacc,
Well, I don't know. This whole house exploded as soon as we saw the Slave One enter the frame, it was really incredible. I mean, again, talk about how these ships, these inanimate objects, can become almost characters in and of themselves. Slave One is certainly no exception at all with that. And then when the other when the Imperial ships started coming in and dropping off the troopers, when that first one came through, I'm like, well, who else is going to drop by? I mean, you got Fennec Shan is back, you got Boba Fett is back. I mean, and we're sitting there waiting for some Jedi to show up at some point. That didn't happen, but so it had this incredible rush of excitement throughout the episode. I had to laugh. We're sitting there, we're watching the show, and of course Mando sees Boba Fett, He doesn't know it's Boba Fett, but he sees, some sort of intruder who's going to be impacting their experience there up on the mountain together. And so he starts going down, and my wife goes, "No, you have the high ground. You never leave the high ground. What's he doing?" So I was pretty proud of her there.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. I was waiting for Mr. T to turn up.
What's that?
I was waiting for Mr. T to turn up,
Mr.
The
T?
A-team. Yeah, I wanted the A-team. Like the A-team was showing up. It had that feel about it, didn't it? Like, they're all getting together now.
Well, I did.
Oh,
I don't know about the A-team, but I certainly there's an Avengers vibe that's going on. I mean, now at the end of this episode, he's going and trying to find Mayfeld. He's got Boba Fett. He's got Fennec Shan. You got the Mandalorian. This is, who else might be joining the ranks? Cara Dune doesn't look like she's going to be joining them. She might be helping in her own way now that she's gone completely legit.
No, she said not completely.
I don't know.
She's not completely.
Well, but she's.
I'm starting to feel like she's going to bite it. I'm really starting to get that vibe.
Yeah.
I really think somebody's got to get it before the end of the season, and I don't think it's going to be, Johnny turn up for 1 week. I think it's got to be an important character, and I think Cara's probably on the cards, especially being as we've heard Gina talking about it in the kind of past tense. It's been a great experience.
Yep.
I've enjoyed, rather than I'm enjoying. It's like, so I think that we can expect a huge showdown soon, and I think she's probably going to be the one that gets it. That's my guess.
Yeah, it's possible, but I am wondering if the Mandalorian is such a solitary character. Yes, he has the child Grogu, Baby Yoda, take your pick, but now we see that family is expanding, and do you guys see that as maybe the direction that this show could be heading as we get into season 3? That it's now going to be more of an ensemble type of situation. What do you say, Adam?
Yeah, well, we've got 2 episodes. I guess it's 2 episodes left of the season, so I think they're definitely pooling all the characters and all the story resources for the big major battles that they're going to have these last 2 episodes. But we're definitely set up where he could expand that family, because either he's got to find his own ship or he's got to be part of Boba Fett's crew now. So we're definitely into this transition point. I think it's going to change, because we've got 2 episodes of this, or 2 seasons of the same format now, so it's time to shake things up.
Jim, what were you going to say about this? The idea of it maybe morphing into more of an ensemble show as opposed to just about the Mandalorian?
Well, maybe not as the series motors along, but if they're going to be taking on Moff Gideon in the Empire to retrieve Baby Yoda, then they're definitely going to need a decent-sized crew. Definitely. Now, to bring in Mayfield. And he got a first name, too. It's like Miggs? Mayfield? Miggs?
Yeah, I got Megs or Megs, I think. Megs Mayfield.
Mig Mayfield, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's cool. But the Mandalorian instantly is going to use him as a source for information on the Empire, and that made me go back to season 1 and take a look at some Bill Burr stuff from episode 6, chapter 6. I just wanted to know if there was any sort of nuggets of information that he dropped about having, about having knowledge about Moff Gideon and where he's located. But the only thing we really learned about him was he's a former Imperial sharpshooter. So he has a line on info somehow, but he is currently not with the Empire anymore.
See, that's
he is a prisoner. So
it's a good point.
I have to bust him out of prison.
I remember, Jim, that he was a sharpshooter, and I thought, okay, it's not like he's a code breaker like we had in Paul, in Last Jedi. So what is the need for this sharpshooter on this team? It's essentially a sniper. I would think that they really need artillery go in there and blast and get this guy out. They need a rescue team, which in a sense, I guess that's where we met Mayfield. He was on this in that rescue team to break the guy out of prison. But it was just an interesting. It was an interesting choice. I would thought if he was going to go and get any of those that were left, he would get the big guy with the horns.
Oh well, maybe
get more muscle.
It's going to be a package deal.
The thing that tickles me about this is like you've got all these different people with different qualities that are useful, but who would have guessed that a valuable ability in this kind of show would be having deadly knees? I mean, we've always been scared of Boba, but now you got to worry about his knee.
Man, that guy's he's like Adam West Batman. He's got gadgets coming out of every orifice.
I bet every man,
body
every
part.
Man Merc out there is looking at those little things on their kneecaps now with a totally different vibe, you know.
Yeah.
Speaking of, can I say something about the weaponry? And it was the way that this season's been going, and the weaponry that the Mando has. He almost seems invincible. He can't shoot the Beskar. He has those whistling birds that he can pop out of his wrist whenever he wants to take out everyone in the room. I was beginning to think that he's Superman. You know, he has no kryptonite. And the episode ended the way it ended, and that kind of changed my mind about things when I saw the Razor Crest get blown to crap and Baby Yoda get scooped up by Dark Troopers. Sorry, folks. You know, so definitely he got knocked down a peg or two. So they have been able to instill drama into this show. And that's something I was afraid of, that we were constantly going to get, you know, these little teases here and there without any sort of threat by the end of the episode. Everything will have been resolved. But this one really leaves us hanging here. Baby Yoda in the clutches of Moff Gideon. Baby Yoda definitely displaying dark side tendencies, chucking those stormtroopers on. Now, sure, you use the Force in knowledge and defense when you're a Jedi. And Baby Yoda was most likely defending himself, but he showed no restraint, that's for sure. He showed no restraint. And
not until he tuckered out. He literally
got tuckered out. Isn't that what Moff Gideon said? Oh, he goes, "Oh, so sleepy."
Yeah.
It makes you so sleepy.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then and the sound design with Baby Yoda right there. He made the cutest sounds when he was wiped out.
When Mando was kind of talking about, oh, you know, we need to take you. I need to fulfill my promise. I need to take you to your people. You need to go learn that Force stuff. You know, you felt so sorry for him because he was kind of persuading himself. I need to do that, right? I don't just need to keep you in Goodlier forever. I need to fulfill my promise, because he's obviously got to that place now where he's just like, I just want to cuddle this little thing and get out of here. You know, you got the impression he was talking to himself, trying to persuade himself that he needs to do that.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, definitely in the course of the past few episodes, the last two specifically, you really get
I like the
feeling
nice lady comment as well about Ahsoka.
The nice
I
lady.
wouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
Something you would expect him to say, you know?
Well, you know, something that occurred to me in that opening sequence as the Mandalorian was talking to Baby Yoda, Grogu, is that he really is sort of the that Han Solo type character who's kind of describing these mystical things in his own way, like, you know, like you said, Paul, you know, the nice lady, you know, you'll have to go with the Jedi. Yeah. You know, I think he even used the Jedi stuff at one point. So he is, I mean, he is serving that role as kind of being the everyman in a sense that isn't as schooled as some of the viewers. And I think that is so important. And I'm glad that they're taking that direction with the character, because I talk to people all the time that are fans of the show and they love the show. But again, they're not as steeped in this lore as we are. And so I think the character of the Mandalorian is very, very important, because he is sort of the he does speak for them. Adam, do you talk to folks that are I'm sure you get a lot of questions from people all the time, because you're the resident Star Wars expert. even for other Star Wars experts you are, but you get people that are asking you about this kind of stuff, all the time about, hey, I'm watching Mandalorian, and who's this character, who's that character, and why didn't we hear about this when we were watching this movie or that movie?
Oh yeah, sure. Everybody asks me those kinds of things, and they expect me to know it all, to have the inside access. Not knowing that I'm just like everybody else, where Lucasfilm would only tell me what I absolutely need to know for the thing I'm working on at the time. But yeah, I like what you said about Din being the everyman, because the way they opened this episode, Din was doing exactly what we wanted to do as the audience. He starts out by testing out Grogu's new name, and calling it by that and seeing his reaction and laughing at it. That's exactly what all of us in the audience would do if we were there. So it fulfills that need that we all have to do those little things. He's interacting with the baby for us because we can't do it ourselves. So they're really, Dave and John and everybody else, they're really keen on that in giving the audience what they want, call it fan service or whatever, who cares? It's, to have a successful show, you give the audience what they want, and that's what they've done here.
Yeah, we've gone round and round on this show many times talking about, fan service and, what it is, what it isn't, is it a good thing, is it a bad thing? And I think that if it's just, if it's done well, it's good storytelling and it satisfies the fans.
Don't you think it's one of those terms that we could do without?
Absolutely.
Yes, because it doesn't
It
exist.
feels like something
There
that's
is
just
no
entirely
such
negative.
thing as fan service.
It's
Sorry,
just
Paul,
an excuse to not please people. It's like kind of one of those things where, yeah, you could overdo it, but I mean, really, all they're actually saying is we don't want to give people what they want.
Yeah, well, I do think that there's an aspect of if you play too much to the fans, then you forget about a more mainstream audience. To me, that's what fan service is. It's not about fan favorite characters showing up. It's more about if the conversation and the story is so insular that it doesn't let other people in. And as Adam was pointing out, we were discussing, I think that Din Djarin is a great character because he does let people in, because he is kind of, in a way, an observer to things he doesn't understand like we are. So
that was probably
one of those things
the
that's
best.
become kind of very all-encompassing. It makes sense in moderation, but it's like moderation doesn't seem to be the way these days.
I was just going to say Jason's definition of fan service was probably the best I've ever heard. To a point of where it makes sense. Because I stand by, there is no such thing as fan service. I don't believe in that.
No.
But Jason does, put it in a certain way. I mean, when it gets too inside baseball and it starts excluding anyone new from coming into the fold to enjoy these stories, then maybe that's taking it too far.
I would say
RPG
the sequels are almost too much fan service in that they're making films that are meant to be very like the old ones. So although it's not fan service in terms of giving people characters that they want or things that we've experienced before, they're literally trying to replicate something in a new way. So in a way, that's kind of trying to appeal to everybody and give everybody what they've had before, but different. Whereas what we want is build on the stuff that we like.
Yeah, but what I think that is so beautiful about this show is that whether you knew, for example, who Ahsoka Tano was or wasn't, or whether you knew even who Boba Fett was or wasn't, or didn't make that connection, you still were entertained like nobody's business for 30 minutes because of it just being well executed, well told, well directed, well written, etc. So that I think is great. And then you can start peeling back the onion, and there's this rich mythology behind it that will, hopefully, draw people to it.
I know it's working in some way that's new, because I've heard from friends that I've not heard from since my school days, like through social media, in terms of just getting more frequent messages and things like that. Just since Mandalorian's been back, and it's like these people have not been motivated to write to me in years, and now all of a sudden it's like they're excited about this. They remember what a kiddie Star Wars nutter was. and go, who can I talk to about this? I know. Let's ping Bateman. So I think it's great that it's clearly connecting with all kinds of people, hardcore fans and old fans and new
totally
fans
is.
alike.
I just
It
saw
is a new way to
insane.
connect with a much broader, broader audience out there. I know on social media, I've made I've made the most new connections like on Twitter that I have in like a couple of years. New follows, and I've connected reciprocal follows back and forth with people in a variety of industries and professions and media specifically because they're interested in Baby Yoda and the Mandalorian. So it is a new way to connect with people now that we haven't really had since the 80s.
Can you imagine if they'd launched this episode and the Ahsoka episode at a celebration? The place would have just exploded.
It would have been a really fun place to watch these episodes. That's for sure. But I gotta tell you, I mean, I was always very jealous. I would hear Jim talking about watching the Clone Wars, on Friday nights with his boys, and it was taco night, and I was like, man, oh man, that sounds like so much fun. And I got to tell you, I'm enjoying that kind of experience with my own family and my kids with Mandalorian. So I can't say that I would rather be in a crowded convention hall watching these moments unfold than I would be with my kids. Now I'd love it if you guys were with me, which you are kind of as we do these shows. But here's one. If we're gonna pick some nits, this is something that kind of bothered me a little bit. Jim was. As great as Ming-Na Wen is as Fennec Shand, and a great character, and she's got that icy demeanor and everything. Do you think she was kind of shoehorned in this episode a bit? I mean, why did they need her when they made her death so convincing? And I know she's got 3PO's midsection now. I mean, she's got his bikini line, but. I mean, wouldn't it have been just as easy? And honestly, I wouldn't have been too mad if I would have seen something like, Aura Singh show up here.
Well,
in that
obviously,
role.
it was this, but this was all planned out. This was clearly planned out. And you can't have Aura Singh because she's already been pronounced dead via canon in Solo when it was revealed that Woody Harrelson killed her.
Oh, yes. But that was an off-screen death. We had an on-screen death with Fennec Shand, and here she comes.
Yeah, right. Who's ever dead? Nobody's ever dead. No one is dead in Star Wars.
It feels like they're stacking the deck for a huge shootout where a bunch of them are going to go down, and she feels like an easy target, It's like, well, we've had her in once before. Let's bring her back, and then we can kill her off good and proper.
That's funny that you mentioned that, Paul, because, and I'll throw this back to Jim, is that when you have a character that had an on-screen death and then they come back, what does that do to your suspense around that character? Does it make you think they're more more volatile, or does it make you think that there's no way they're going to kill them off because we saw them killed off before? Because she was in some pretty harrowing experience, circumstances with the Rock and the missile going after her and all of that. I thought her number was up, and I'm like, yeah, I thought that last season too.
No, but again, then you can't put together your A-team, like you're saying, and I think that's what we're seeing here. We're seeing the A-team come together, killing off Fennec. So we thought at the end of Chapter 5. I mean, obviously, it was telegraphed that she would be coming back with that little sequence there at the very end that featured Boba Fett approaching her. And they gave us the obvious audio clues that was going to be Boba Fett. So no surprise at all that Fennec Shand has returned. I figure an actress like her, with her connection to the Disney company via the Marvel films, etc., I thought that she would have much more longevity in the cast.
Yeah.
And so I'm not surprised at all.
Well,
to see
I
old
give you
robot
credit
guts.
I give you credit for thinking that. I mean, I'm not saying that there wasn't a moment there with her and Boba Fett, but I thought it was just to establish Boba. He's following the trail. Leads from one body to the next. I didn't think that was necessarily a resurrection in the making of Fennec Shand. So I just thought, why not, use this as an opportunity to bring in another character? But as you say, she's got deep ties to the company, and who knows? She just might be someone they love working with, and they're like, hey, let's bring Ming back.
But I do see your point here,
was disappointed in
one second,
season
Adam.
one.
I see your point here, Jason. As far as having another character in there, I suddenly am like picturing a Dengar up on the rock or something.
Right.
What about you, Adam? You were trying to throw in some comments.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I was actually in that season 1 episode, I was a little bit disappointed when she was killed so quickly, because I thought for an actress like Ming-Na Wen, who has a big fan following from Marvel and Stargate and other things like that, that she felt a little underutilized in that episode, especially for her physical skills. Because she's got, as we saw in this episode, she's got good fight skills too. So I was happy to see her come back and to see her have some great moves in this episode. And I feel like they've kind of set her up for whatever Boba Fett's future is, whether it's a movie or his own series or to take over this series. He's got a co-star now.
Boy, I think you nailed it right there. I think you answered my question: is why Ming-Na Wen, why Fennec Shan? And I think you're absolutely right. I think that we've been talking about, and particularly Jim's been talking about, having somewhat confirmed through sources that the Boba Fett series is in pre-production. It is going to happen. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And they could have said, look, she was so great to work with. She's such a great actress. She's such a great fighter. All of these things. So we want to put her in this Boba Fett series. So we need to save her and bring her back to life. So that's a really good point. Speaking of which, I don't want to come across, and I may have. My point was that it wasn't that I didn't enjoy seeing Boba Fett and seeing him become such a badass fighter and all of that. I was just saying it was awfully ambitious to do all of this in one episode. I really enjoyed the fight stuff, and we finally know what a gaffy stick is used for.
Yeah,
I never knew.
See it. Yeah.
Man, oh man, that was intense.
Yeah.
In my house, it was a series of oh, as the crack of the the helmets was happening, and you crack them open. It was like a lobster. Crack them open with one side and stab them with the other side. Oh my God. It was absolutely incredible.
It's so satisfying to see those helmets shatter too. I don't know what it is about that.
We're getting a little. Hey, Paul. We're getting. Sorry, bud. We're getting. There it is. It may be when you're talking. I mean, I know you can't help it because of the way the delay works sometimes. But I think when you're talking and someone else is, that's when it starts to get all Max Headroomy. We're crossing the streams here.
Weird, because I have no video feed. I think. I mean, I like the fact that it was kind of very Once Were Warriors, very tribal, very brutal. I mean, he's still tooled up with guns. I mean, he has weapons, but now he prefers to break out the gaffy stick and get kind of barbarian on everybody. I love the fact that Robert Rodriguez was a last minute choice. Apparently, somebody dropped out, and they pulled him in at the very last minute. And so he came in and kind of did his thing. But I felt like that scene had a certain brutality to it that I felt, Robert's very good at that kind of thing. So I love that he brought that to it.
I mean, we saw a degree of that with the Armorer and her attack on the stormtroopers. And my daughter at one point asked, she goes, "Those aren't robots, are they?" And I'm like, no, they're not. They're not. They're people. They're people. They were people. But
I love the way Tamira says Tatooine as well, guys.
Oh,
Tatooine. How does he say it?
It's hard. I can't imitate it, but I actually wrote it in my notes that the same thing, Paul. I love the way Tem says Tatooine or whatever.
That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. But speaking of my notes, I wrote down the action was happening so fast. I wrote down retreat, the crest. They fly now. As the dark troopers were descending upon Baby Yoda there at the top of the Seeing Stone. Yeah, Finn, they fly now. They've been flying for a while. I don't know how many times we got to see imps or some version of imps fly before the memo finally gets to them. But I just thought that was kind of funny.
Can I just take a little bit slight tangent? I love Tython, but I was expecting it to be a little bit more, have a bit more of an epic feel to it, right, and a little less kind of California desert. You know, I liked it. I thought it was nice, but in its other appearances in the EU, it's normally, much more kind of ruins and monoliths and giant statues all broken down and things like that. So for me, it felt a little shortchanged. But at the same time, I do realise it would have been expensive to go there. But.
This past week, ever since the Tython name was revealed in Chapter 13, I found myself rereading the Dawn of the Jedi comic series that was released by Dark Horse toward the end of their run with the license, right? And I've determined that this is Tython in name only in The Mandalorian because it's vastly different from the Tython system that was developed for that comic book series. The Tython system was supposed to be in the deep core, whereas this system, they say, is in the outer rim. And so that right away puts it in a vastly different kind of portion of space. And but also the events in the Dawn of the Jedi series happen tens of thousands of years before the events in The Mandalorian. So the galaxy could have gone through all kind of different changes. I mean, for crying out loud, in this very series, Dawn of the Jedi, Tatooine is lush and green with lakes and, so it shows that the galaxy on a whole changes and evolves over time, just like our own galaxy, I'm sure.
Well, I do get the blue butterfly thing. I thought that was interesting, because I know that's the blue butterflies has often been used as a symbol for the Force and the positive side of the Force, and it shows up all the time in the EU. Where Vader's surrounded by butterflies and things like that, when he's still kind of fighting to kind of hold on to his good side, but then eventually, he's stamping them under his feet. So seeing all those little kind of glowing.
Where does that happen, Paul? Refresh our memory. What story can we find Vader stomping on butterflies?
It's in the recent ones, but I know it was like way back in the Marvel era. There's a little bit of that too, where there's butterflies flying around. But I don't think that was necessarily, they were meaning to represent anything back then. But then slowly, it's kind of creeped into different comic books. So they do show up. People will talk about it. I can't remember which title it was, but I know one of the recent ones has got butterflies and Vader as well. Blue butterflies from back when Anakin, when he was kind of still dipping in and out of being Anakin. So I liked all that, and I liked how they put the all the font that Ralph designed for Yavin. Has since become the kind of Jedi font all around the rock and what have you that he's sitting on. So I liked all that. So
that's very cool stuff. I am throwing the number up on the screen, 708-866-1737. The lines are now open, so if you'd like to call and be a part of the discussion here as we continue to talk about Chapter 14 of Mandalorian. Speaking of, we were talking about the Force and the butterflies and all of that. I wanted if you guys might have some guesses, maybe Paul will start with you, as to what was going on with Baby Yoda, Grogu, the child, inside the blue force field. Was this communing with the Force itself? Is this some sort of technical communications gear? What is it exactly? What do you think?
It felt to me like an amplification of the Force. Like somehow he's getting rid of all the clutter and he's able to kind of connect with the all. Because the whole idea of him being able to communicate with other Force users seems to, imply that that's what he's doing. He's kind of getting broadband for Jedi communication. So what I thought was going to be interesting was seeing him sitting there meditating with his hands upturned. I mean, it was a very un-baby-like pose. Super cute too. But you looked at it and you kind of went, is he maybe like a lot more grown up than we realise? I mean, obviously we're speculating about that anyway because he's 50. But I do wonder from time to time, like, is he about to just kind of flick a switch and be very different? Because there are definitely moments in there where he's connected up to other force users where you think,
well,
this is not just a baby.
One theory that I've heard, even in my own house, is that perhaps the Yoda species, that is, like possums play possum, that the Yoda species, the way they hide their force abilities is to pretend to be deranged, crazy, childish, childlike, whatever you want to say, that's sort of
feeble.
A defense mechanism that they have, because they maybe are so sought after for their powers and their abilities, and that there could be something to this, that Baby Yoda is essentially, kind of playing baby or playing possum. Adam, I saw you kind of nodding your head. Is that something you might have thought about too?
Yeah, I think by the time we get to the end of the season, maybe the last scene here, we might have him talking a little bit, all of a sudden, not.
Oh
not
man, I haven't even thought about his voice. Who's gonna do the voice?
You.
Wow, can you imagine? What's his first word gonna be?
Well, I'll tell you what. Somebody in the chat here said Scotty Arms reports Grogu quietly says Sith Lord at 27:47, at 27 minutes and 47 seconds into the actual episode. We can't check it right now. I'll take it into the RFR Sound Lab over the weekend and take a deeper look. But if you guys in the chat want to go investigate this, 27 minutes and 47 seconds into the episode, Baby Yoda says Sith Lord. I did not hear it. I did not hear it.
I didn't hear it either. A Sith Lord. All right, let's hit the switchboard here. Matthew, looks like we've got Matthew on the line from Tampa. Hello, Matthew. You're on with Rebel Force Radio. We got Paul Bateman and Adam Bray on.
Hey guys, this is Matthew Rooney.
Good to hear from you.
Hey, Matthew.
Talking on the call. I have a couple different questions for you guys, if that's okay. The first one is, obviously we're gearing up for a showdown with Moff Gideon. Who's going to take possession of the Darksaber if he loses it? Is it going to go to Bo-Katan? Is it going to go to Din Djarin? Is she going to yield it to him as the hero of the story? And then the second question is, it seems like Boba Fett's been following the Mandalorian since the middle of season 1. And that would be before he found his father's armor. So do you think Boba Fett had some kind of other interest in the Mandalorian, perhaps because of their shared origin, his own father being a foundling as well, and that's why he was following, and it just so happened that he came across his armor at the same time?
I think it's a great question. I kind of wondered something similar when it came to his interest. How long has he been following him, and is it just the armor, or was it something deeper? Adam, you want to take a stab at this one?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know what his interest would be. I think what this season has done. We had a little bit last season, but more this season, is create a lot of great loose ends that can either be taken up in later seasons or in other series. But we do, with the sword and the spear, we've got a couple of weapons in play, and I think the spear, that's got to have more significance to it that I think we're yet to find out. My thinking is the blade probably will go to Bo-Katan. I'd like to think that you don't bring in an actress like Katie Sackhoff without plans to further use them, although I would have said the same thing about Han Solo and Lando Calrissian, but I think when we're dealing with Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, I think they've got more foresight than we've seen in the past. So I think we're going to see Katie Sackhoff. Clearly, she's got to come back on this series because she has to work this out with the Moff to get that sword back. So I don't think that she's going to do that in this series, probably by the end of this season. Then we may see her go to a series of her own, or she may just continue in this like a number of recurring characters. But I think that's something that'll continue to play out with her.
I have a thought about swords. I was thinking about the fact that the little gear stick ball manages to survive. Can you hear me right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead.
yeah, leveled out there. We got you. Go ahead.
Okay. I had a thought about the fact that the gear stick kind of ball manages to survive the explosion. So is that made out of Beskar, and is that why he's so interested in it? Because he's like, there's something special about that ball. and the other thing I thought of was like, yes, maybe Baby Yoda is not. It's not safe for him to play with a lightsaber, but maybe they'll give him some kind of a practice sword, and they might make it out of the armorer might make it, just because he's a foundling, make him a sort of a play saber out of the ball and part of the spear, so it'd have like a little Beskar sword that he could use that would, could handle a lightsaber but not be a lightsaber, so he's not going to cut his hands off or anything.
That is,
a lot of people, a lot of people are reporting on the chat that Baby Yoda does indeed say Sith Lord. If you listen closely, you will hear it. Multiple people are reporting this. So unless there is some conspiracy to play a joke on us tonight,
Yeah.
I can't help but think it's like, if you play the record backwards, you hear, Freddy is the devil or something like that.
Listen really closely. He goes, sounds sweet.
Well, thank you, Matthew, for the call. Appreciate it. Let's. Who else do we have? We got. Looks like we got Rochester on the line. Hello, you're on with Rebel Force Radio.
It's Nate from Rochester.
Nate from Rochester.
Hey, Nate.
Great to have you.
What's going on? So a couple observations from the episode. I got a lot of people were saying in the chat that everybody's expecting Luke Skywalker to show up. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Boy, I tell you, I think it's quite possible. I think if he shows up, I was talking to another pal tonight, and I said, I think if he shows up, he's going to show up in a cloak, in shadow, at dusk, on a very dark planet. I think at the very end, and I think that's about all we'll see of Luke in this season. Not to say that it won't evolve into something else, but I think it's going to be very passing. I like everybody else, was like, when's this Jedi going to show up? Who's the Jedi that is going to show up that was perhaps hearing Grogu's calls out? And, the conventional wisdom was on Luke Skywalker. There's also theories that it could be Mace Windu. I think Luke is more likely than Mace, honestly. And
hey, how about Leia? How about Leia? Leia Organa.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, at this point, hasn't she already had her vision and has decided not to be trained? Possibly.
Is true. Possibly, we don't know.
Do you think it would still be impactful with, being as this probably, I don't really know what the comparative viewing figures are, but with Clone Wars, we have had some pretty deep cuts into the EU. And with this, we've had a little bit. But if they're looking for kind of an impactful finale for this season, you would think that they'd want to bring in a Jedi Knight that as many people as possible would recognize. So I would expect something like Luke or Mace. Whereas I think the chance of it being somebody from Rebels, to me, I know a lot of people are into that idea. I'm not into that idea, but I'd almost prefer to sort of be surprised by a character like Quinlan, because he's already been in the Clone Wars and stuff like that. But I think that would be very ineffective at pleasing a general audience, because I think most kind of hardcore fans would just be, who's this guy?
Yes.
A
lot of people are calling for Cal Kestis from the Jedi Fallen Order show or
it's too
video
niche.
game. And
it's too niche.
Paul, I think you're right.
I
think you're right.
I agree.
I agree with Paul. I think it's got to be someone instantly recognizable to a wide swath of fans. Nate,
Is
what
there
else?
anybody we're forgetting? I mean, I don't know. I don't know who we could be forgetting. If there's somebody.
Adam's
I
got
have
one.
another observation. I think that the way that you really maybe put a cliffhanger on it is you don't even find, they don't even find Baby Yoda, and the whole third season is them actually. I know it would be kind of crazy from a marketing standpoint, but the whole third season is them trying to find Baby Yoda, and it's the ensemble, going from adventure to adventure, and that would really, you were talking about making it impactful and effective. I think that's really the dramatic aspect of it.
The last episode of season 3, he'd show up with red eyes and a little black tiny.
Paul, you are not. I don't think you're that far off. I was just going to say, because what if we're looking at something that would really throw the Mandalorian Din for a loop? It would be that the next time he sees Baby Yoda, he's not the friendly little baby that was, that he left.
Would he look with a Vader helmet on, though, man? How cute would he look? His little ears sticking out of holes in the helmet. He's so cute.
The ears, yeah.
But
Adam,
I was going to say,
Adam had some speculation he's been trying to throw out there.
Right, yeah. If I were writing this, I'd have whoever hears it come in, like you guys said, at the very end, the last season, scene of this season. But I would have multiple Force wielders hear the call. I think the more the merrier. I think it would be cool for them to give us a glimpse, even if they don't follow up with most of them. Just a few of them, but to see what the state of Force users is in the galaxy at this moment. You could have half a dozen, just go from planet to planet, kind of like the end of Return of the Jedi, and see who's hearing the call. But I think you've got to have at least one dark side user in the mix, so that season 3 becomes the race for all these Force users to zero in on Baby Yoda.
Yeah,
there is actually, Nate, I want to. Did you have another thought you wanted to give us here?
No, the only other thought I was thinking was the whole Jango stuff, but that's a long, convoluted answer, so I'll get off the line.
All right. Hey, Nate, thanks. Give us a call another time. We appreciate it. Let's go to Indianapolis. Hello, you're on with Rebel Force Radio. Paul Bateman and author Adam Bray, Indianapolis.
Well, what do you know? I actually got through the Jedi Wi-Fi. Chut, boys.
Chut. How are you? Who we talking to?
Not too bad. Oh, Jedi Jones.
Oh, Jedi Jones. All right. old friend. Good to hear from you. What's on your mind tonight?
Well, I will say this. I will preface it by saying I liked last week's. I was floored by last week's. There are things I liked here, but there were things I didn't like here. I know. Fans get all up in arms when one says that, but you know what? It's kind of like, guys, come on. We never used to.
Well, how about you tell us what you didn't like about it? Jones, why don't you tell us what you didn't like about it?
Oh, absolutely, Jim. I'm intrigued by the use of Fett again. I think this approach of having him there was, instead of like Paul's Red Pirate Robert's Bible, that it was more a way of having your cake and eating it too, and not stepping over what's already been done with it.
Okay. All right. Now, appreciate the call. Thanks very much, Jonesy. Paul, you've been known to have thrown this theory around a few times, including, I mean, very recently, about this idea that Boba Fett is less of a man than it is a character, a persona, like in The Princess Bride, the Dread Pirate Roberts. You want to expand on that for those that might not know your Bateman theory there?
Well, initially it was just trying to bring the cool unknown factor back to Boba, but to a certain extent, I think those days have passed us by. But there was some talk about it at one time. I mean, I definitely heard people talking about that kind of thing over at Lucasfilm. long after we'd been ruminating about the whole idea. My idea was basically the short version would be Boba at the bar, and he gets shot in the back of the head, and a stranger who we don't know picks up all the armor, takes it, and off they go. And all of a sudden, we don't know who Boba Fett is anymore, and we've got this secret, hidden man with no name thing back again. But I don't know. I mean, seeing Tamura in this, I mean, like having the helmet off for him now is a large part of his appeal. Now that Mando's kind of fulfilling that role, the fact that even though we've seen him briefly, it's like Mando is still playing the kind of the faceless, silent kind of killer, isn't he? So I don't think we necessarily need two guys who keep the lids on all the time, And I think Tamura's got so much character as he's gotten older. He was tough as anything in this, and it was really entertaining to watch him whether he had the helmet on or not. So I don't know, it's nice. What I like about this is I feel as though Boba is evolving. I mean, one of the things that's quite often leveled at Boba is he's a no character, that it's just some kind of background character that's overrated. And there's no doubt that Tamura is a force to be reckoned with as an actor, and just as a physical presence in a movie. He's very tough looking. So it's quite nice that they're kind of now able to play that in and add to Boba the way that they have. I just think his appeal has kind of developed. I feel like at one point he definitely was a one-note character, and then he almost went to a no-note character because what made him charming and interesting and engaging and was taken away from us when we knew, he's this cute little kid,
Right.
So for me, this is an interesting evolution. I'm now looking at it kind of going, I want to see Tamura kind of sitting around at a bar being a tough guy, and I don't care if he keeps the helmet on or not. So that's quite an interesting change to happen from how I felt about Boba yesterday to how I feel after watching this show. I mean, and it's only half an hour. Can you believe it? It's crazy.
Yeah, no question about it. Let's see if we can get another caller on the line here. Let's go
I
with.
think we may be having some buffering issues with our live feed. So if we, it's a spinning circle.
Okay, well, they'll have to listen to it on the on the podcast then. All right, let's
go
to. Let's go to. I never apologize for the internet. I take no responsibility for it. We've got West Virginia. Hello, you're on with Rebel Force Radio, West Virginia. Go ahead, please.
Hey, it's Alex. Thanks for having me back.
Good to have you, Alex.
Hey, Alex.
Well, I wanted to start off by saying I had some doubts about having both a Mandalorian and a Boba Fett as a separate show going forward, but after tonight and the themes that have been established, I think they have some good choices for going forward with that. And what I mean is Boba Fett, as Jimmy said earlier, is a very sort of self-centered character, as we've seen from the established canon, whereas you're exploring more spiritual themes with the Mandalorian. So if we had the Mandalorian, like if you actually have a Jedi that isn't Luke show up, Yoda.
Is everyone skipping tonight? Is that happening?
It's Skype. It's Skype tonight. It's Skype tonight. Alex, I'm sorry. We're going to need you to repeat that question. Yeah, you were breaking up pretty bad.
It's the bandwidth. It's because everybody's at home at the moment.
That's right.
Sorry about that.
No, it's not your fault. I don't expect you to take responsibility for the internet any more than I'm going to take responsibility for the internet. So go ahead, Alex.
Fair enough. So I had some doubts about having both a Mandalorian and Boba Fett series going forward, just doing them as separate things, because you figure you're going to have a lot of similar themes. But with what Jimmy was getting into earlier, with having a more self-centered Boba Fett character from the established canon, I think that we can have a difference where you continue to explore the sort of spiritual themes that the Mandalorian goes into, whereas Boba Fett does those big hallmark things like the revenge stories, maybe against Alden and like Han Solo.
Yeah, I'm kind of baffled. Alex, thanks for the call. I appreciate it. I mean, to be honest with you, even after seeing Boba Fett as great as he was in this episode today, I'm a little bit confused as to what why we would need a Boba Fett series and what the series would really exist to. What? Why? Just why?
Maybe it'll fill in the blanks. Fill in the blanks. Tell us how he got to where he is today. From the Sarlacc pit to now.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Paul's agreeing with me. I can't tell, but I think that's where the value in that is going to come from, and that series is happening. Believe those rumors you're reading online, because it is in full throttle. The Boba Fett series. It's going to be a mini series. It's not going to be one of these things that goes on season 1, season 2, season 3, etc. At least that's not the plan right now. But I believe that's what it's going to be about. It's going to tell the story of Boba from the time he got out of the Sarlacc pit, or maybe even leading up to that.
Yeah.
And going beyond it. I mean, there's a lot of Boba Fett story you could tell. I'll tell you this. I'm a Cult of Boba Fett kind of guy. I still get the same buzz off of seeing that character, wearing that cool helmet and the gear. I get the same buzz I used to get from seeing him in 1980. Even before 1980. Let's go back to the holiday special, okay? Yeah. And I still get that same buzz. I love it. It's just and even the character, just without the armor, is still just as compelling to me, because they brought in Tim Morrison to play the character, and he's all scarred up because of the digestive juices from the Sarlacc taking its toll on his flesh.
Wait. Hold on. This is the second time that there's been a reference. Jim, I think both times it was from you. How long was he in there? How long can a human being survive without food or water? What do you think they're doing in this Sarlacc pit?
Well, I mean, to be
you
able
can't
to
live for 1,000 years to be digested.
Well, yeah, but they must be doing something to keep you fresh over the course of 1,000 years.
Well, but the Sarlacc's just not eating humans.
Thing immediately.
What's that, Paul?
Why would Boba not get eaten by the Sarlacc and then immediately kill it? That's what I think he would do. And then it's just a question of how long does it take for him to get out? He's probably been eating Sarlacc for a long time.
Oh, he's eating the Sarlacc. He's eating the Sarlacc. So he's eating the thing that's eating him. Man, that is meta.
He ate his way out. Oh, that's priceless.
All right,
I would pay double to see that as a Disney Plus series. Just Boba Fett eating Sarlacc.
Hey, we got
nothing but maybe he could bring in celebrity guests to try different Sarlacc meals and things like that. It's like Rachel Ray, but just with Sarlacc.
Show, right?
Yeah, like the
John
chef
Favreau
show.
does the chef show. Just do a special that's just cooking Sarlacc.
All right, we got Muscle Shoals on the line. Hello, Muscle Shoals.
Hey, this is Landon Levette. Awesome to be on the show.
Good to have you. Yeah, it's a little tough. We're having problems with Skype tonight, but go right ahead.
I thought the Slave One showing up was awesome. Boba putting on the armor was awesome. I thought the shot with him in the cockpit with the armor on was just like Empire Strikes Back. And the controls of the Slave One, that shot looked just like Attack of the Clones. I'm agreeing with Jimmy Mack. I think the Boba show is going to be a prequel, how he got out of the Sarlacc, and then the Ahsoka show is going to be a future show, her getting Ezra. So this is like the spin-off show week month for Mandalorian.
So Boba Fett's going to be a prequel, and the Ahsoka is going to be a sequel. So you'll have the Boba Fett miniseries, the Mandalorian, and then the Ahsoka series. Ooh. All right. Very good. Good theory.
That sounds good to me.
All right. Here, I think we got our old buddy. Our old buddy Liam is calling. Hey, Liam, you're on with Rebel Force Radio. I'm on. Hi. Mom, I'm on. Liam.
Hello.
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 Hi, Liam.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a long time and I have questions for you guys.
Say that again, Liam, for us. We're having a little trouble with the Skype tonight.
Two questions.
Oh. I have two questions. So here's my first one. Do you think there's any chance that Ezra or Mace Windu to be the Jedi come to train?
Mace Windu. Could it be Mace Windu? That's definitely a theory that's being talked about. I think it's unlikely. I really do. I think the smarter money is on Luke Skywalker.
You don't think there's a chance just purely because Samuel Jackson is doing a lot of stuff for Marvel at the minute, and he's clearly open to going on Marvel TV shows and playing the same characters. So maybe he would be up for a quick cameo in this. I don't
think that it's necessarily a Sam Jackson issue. I just think that they may have run the well dry on bringing people back from the dead a little bit. But Lee, I'm glad you stayed up with us. Appreciate it very much. Always good to hear from you. Last call. We're going to end things here with Phoenix. Hello, Eric.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. I got three things for you. Number one.
I'll give you two.
Freaking Fett. Okay, that guy has been my favorite character since I got the proof of purchase in 1979, sent away. Got the Boba Fett character. Everything that I did with him was phenomenal tonight. When I called in at the Gunslinger episode last year, one of the things I said, I hoped it was Boba Fett, and I wanted to see him redeemed. And to me, for him to be redeemed was to see him do what he did tonight, the melee combat. He used all his weapons, and at the end, he ended up, partnering with Mandalorian. So phenomenal. The second thing is, we see the Mando calling for help. He goes to see Cara Dune. He's trying to get Mayfield, which I found interesting. But what we didn't see is, does Boba Fett call for help? And I think he does. I think Boba Fett's going to call for help, and I think he's going to call for Dengar, because in the EU, Dengar's who helped him get out of the Sarlacc. And how awesome would that be for Dengar to show up, to be part of the crew that goes in and gets Baby Grogu back? What say you?
As long as he's not played by Simon Pegg.
That's what's going to happen. That's going to be it. It's going to be Simon frickin' Pegg. He's been angling for this Dengar gig ever since he did the voice work in Clone Wars. Well, it wouldn't be the first time they brought Dengar back, so it's definitely a possibility. I promised you one more. What's one more you got for us, Eric?
Okay. Well, it's not that great, but I'm going to say rest in peace, Razor Crest / Sid the Sloth. So once I say that, you will never unsee that. So sorry for that.
All right, man. Thanks very much. As always, appreciate it, and certainly appreciate everybody that has joined us tonight on Rebel Force Radio Mandalorian After Show, Chapter 14. Man, it brought a lot to the plate and a lot to discuss this particular episode. Just when you thought that it wasn't going to teach us anything new after that incredible debut of Ahsoka Tano last week, man, oh man, we got treated to a whole lot. And glad that you were all able to join us for this conversation. Starting with our pal Adam Bray. Adam, always great to talk with you and great to have you on Mandalorian After Show. Appreciate it. And what's the best way, if folks want to hear more from you, what's the best way for people to keep up with the latest going on with Adam Bray?
Sure, I'm on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, all this at author Adam Bray.
Very good. All right, there it is. Adam, you've been watching the series obviously unfold, as all of us have. What is your biggest and best hope for as this season wraps up? What are you hoping for?
Just keep doing what you're. I trust Dave and John with where they've been going, so just do more of it.
All right. And, of course, big thanks to Paul Bateman. It's awfully late for him. Paul, great to always talk with you, and you offer so much to the conversation. What about you as far as what's the one thing you would like to see happen on this show before the series wraps up? We only got 2 more left.
Well, I'm not sure it's going to happen, but how amazing would it be to see Luke Skywalker, even if it is, like you say, from a distance or just a quick look, even if he's up on a hillside somewhere about to get in a spaceship and R2 comes down to get Baby Yoda, like one of those types of things, the droids are with him or something. That would be amazing. So something that throws us into that timeline where we actually kind of recognize visually, oh yeah, this definitely is 5 years after the original Star Wars movies, because look, there are those characters just 5 years older than they were in Return of the Jedi. So however they do that, and whichever character it is, it would be nice to have that kind of connection back to some character that's been in. Maybe it could even be Lando turn up. Like Luke might be too busy.
Who knows? Yeah.
Yeah.
Lando would be a good one. All right, Paul, great to talk with you. And I plug your Facebook a lot, but for those that aren't aware, what's the handle there on your Facebook page they can follow you?
Just find Paul Bateman. Go looking for it with Rebel Force Radio. You'll find me, or you can find me on Twitter at Paul RMQ.
Paul
as
RMQ.
Barry. So I'm easy to find online, nerding out.
Very good. All right. We appreciate it very much. Jimmy Mack, final thoughts, Chapter 14.
All right, Jason. Final 14. Did. Not in this episode. No.
I think what Jimmy meant there was...
Oh, God, you just got to laugh. Tython, it was interesting to see Tython in this episode, but man, is probably the least exotic environment. We've seen the action happen in The Mandalorian. I think that the visual quality of these environments suffer when they take it to location. It did come off looking like a TV show, and that was the first time I actually felt that about The Mandalorian. It lacked its cinematic excellence when it just appeared to be shot in some hill somewhere in California with those stormtroopers. I was having seeing shades of various fan films I've watched throughout the years. However, the fight choreography, the stunts and everything, vastly higher quality than what you'd find in a fan film, and that's just a little nitpick on my part. I like to see the show maintain its consistency with its other episodes, and I think that primarily comes from working with that stagecraft, the volume. I think that really enhances the look of this show, which is kind of wild to even say that I would be preferring to see a special effect as opposed to an actual raw live environment, but that's how far the technology's come, and so I'm embracing it. And I just felt that there could have been something a little more exotic happening with that locale outside of the cool Stonehenge rock stone area, which I thought was pretty neat. For the most part, it was very mundane and ordinary looking place. Give us some big giant, pterodactyls flying around, or like in the last episode with that burnt out forest. They had those big giant, they were like Fombas from the Phantom Menace. It was very, very similar. I like seeing things like that make the environments more alien, more otherworldly, more exotic. But that's a real minor nitpick. I watched the episode over and over again and loved it more each and every time. So sad to see the Razor Crest go, but that leads us to a fun little place that my thought process took me. Now that the Mandalorian doesn't have the Razor Crest, he's obviously going to need a ship. And we know the Millennium Falcon passed through several hands prior to The Force Awakens. What if the Mandalorian somehow claimed ownership of the Millennium Falcon for a while? That would be wild. And it's possible. It's possible because we know Han and Chewie lost ownership of that ship at some point before they were finally able to regain ownership in The Force Awakens. No Jedi shows up for Baby Yoda. So was this bad advice from Ahsoka Tano? Did she steer them wrong? Obviously, Boba Fett was tracking the Mandalorian and decided to make his move right then and there. And the Empire had placed a tracker on the Razor Crest, as we saw a couple episodes ago. So that's why they were attracted to Tython, but no Jedi showed up. And I was wondering, man, am I disappointed by that? I don't know if I am. I still haven't really wrapped my head around all of that. Bringing Jedi in, we have to assume one is going to show up to that Seeing Stone sooner or later. And I'm like Paul. I think it has to be a big player. Somebody's going to make a massive impact on the mainstream fandom at large. Sorry, everyone, for the poor sound quality tonight. But as Jason said, the internet sometimes is more evil than a Sith Lord who is hangry. A hangry Sith Lord. Oh, boy. All right. I don't have a sign-off yet, so I'll just say Sabine Wren, not in this episode.
Yet again, not in this episode. All right, that's going to do it for us. We'll see you next time. For Rebel Force Radio, I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.